The rain was Seattle's heartbeat, a relentless drum against my apartment window, as I sat in the dark, a half-empty bottle of whiskey on the table. My name is Axel Thornton, 48 years old, and yesterday, after 19 years of loyalty, I was fired from Cascade Dynamics, the tech firm I'd helped build from a garage startup to a Fortune 500 giant. My boss, Greg Hensley, a man half my age with a smile like a shark, had called me into his glass-walled office and said, "Axel, you're too expensive. We're moving in a new direction." 19 years, sleepless nights, patents with my name, systems I designed that powered half the city's infrastructure, and it ended with a handshake and a cardboard box. The betrayal cut deeper than the loss, but it was the spark of something else, something fierce, that kept me awake tonight. I wasn't done yet. I'd always been the guy who fixed things. As a kid in Tacoma, I'd take apart radios, clocks, anything with gears, and put them back together, better than before. My dad, a mechanic, taught me that a good engineer sees the world as a puzzle, not a problem. I carried that into Cascade, joining in 2006 when it was just 20 of us in a drafty warehouse. I was the lead engineer, the one who stayed late, debugging code, redesigning circuits, turning dreams into reality. We built drones, smart grids, AI systems that revolutionized logistics. My designs were the backbone, my name on 17 patents. I wasn't just an employee. I was family, or so I thought. Greg changed everything. He arrived 5 years ago, a slick MBA from Stanford, hired by the board to modernize. At 32, he was all charisma and buzzwords, disruption, agility, scalability. I didn't mind at first. I respected ambition. But Greg saw me as a relic, a legacy cost, in his spreadsheets. He'd smirk at my suggestions, bypass me in meetings, promote younger engineers who parroted his jargon. I swallowed it, kept my head down, because I loved the work. My team, Sarah, Vikram, Lee, relied on me, and the projects we built were my pride. I thought loyalty would protect me. I was wrong. The firing came on a Monday, the kind of gray Seattle day that makes you crave coffee and quiet. I'd been debugging a glitch in our latest AI grid, my desk cluttered with schematics, when Greg's assistant pinged me, "Meeting, 2 p.m." I walked into his office, expecting a routine update. He sat behind his desk, his tie a bright slash of red, his eyes cold. "Axel," he said, leaning back, "you've done great work, but the company's evolving. Your salary, your benefits, it's not sustainable. We're letting you go." I stared, my pulse a dull thud in my ears. 19 years, I said, my voice steady despite the shock. I built half this company, Greg. My systems run your profits. He shrugged, his smile thin. "Business isn't sentimental. You'll get a severance package, 3 months. HR's waiting." He stood, extended his hand, as if we were closing a deal. I didn't take it. I walked out, my fists clenched, the glass walls reflecting my stunned face. HR handed me papers, a checklist, my box of belongings already packed. Sarah caught me in the hall, her eyes wide. "Axel, what's happening?" she whispered. "They're done with me," I said, my voice hollow. "Keep the team strong, Sarah. They'll need you." I drove home through the rain, the Space Needle a blurry shadow in the distance. My apartment in Capitol Hill, once a haven of books and blueprints, felt like a cage. I poured the whiskey, sat in the dark, and replayed Greg's words, "Too expensive." It wasn't just about money. I'd seen the board's new hires, younger, cheaper, less likely to challenge Greg's vision. I was a threat, a reminder of the company's roots, and he'd erased me with a signature. The betrayal wasn't just Greg's. It was the board's, the colleagues who'd looked away, the system I'd trusted. My phone buzzed with texts. "Vikram, this is bullshit, Axel. We're fighting for you. Lee, I'm so sorry." Friends, family, even my ex-wife Karen, who'd left 10 years ago but stayed a friend, "You're worth more than they know." Their words were kind, but they couldn't fill the void. I thought of my dad, his hands stained with grease, his voice, "Fix the puzzle, Axel." But this puzzle was broken, the pieces scattered, and I didn't know where to start. I walked to the window, the city lights a mosaic of possibility and pain. Seattle had been my home, my battleground, where I'd built a life from code and steel. Now, it felt like enemy territory. I thought of Greg's smirk, the bored silence, the years I'd given. The whiskey burned my throat, but it didn't dull the anger or the clarity. I wasn't just a cost. I was Axel Thornton, the man who'd made Cascade what it was, and I wouldn't let them write my ending. I opened my laptop, my fingers steady despite the ache in my chest. My patents, my designs, they were still mine, at least in part. I had contacts, clients, ideas Greg could never dream of. The betrayal had gutted me, but it had also woken something, a hunger, a defiance. I started typing, a rough plan, not for revenge, not yet, but for survival. I'd rebuild, not for Cascade, but for me. The rain kept falling, Seattle's heartbeat, and I felt mine sink with it. This wasn't the end. It was the beginning of a fight I didn't know I had in me. The next morning, I called Sarah. "I need your help," I said, my voice raw but resolute. "I'm not done, not by a long shot." "Good," she said, her voice fierce. "We're with you, Axel. Whatever you're planning, we're in." I hung up, my eyes on the city outside. Greg thought he'd buried me, but he'd only planted a seed. I didn't know how, but I'd make him regret it, not with fists, but with the one thing I'd always been, better. The puzzle was broken, but I was still an engineer, and I'd find a way to fix it. The Seattle fog clung to the streets like a ghost, muffling the city's pulse as I sat in a Capitol Hill diner, the smell of burnt coffee and bacon grease heavy in the air. It had been a week since Cascade Dynamics fired me, Axel Thornton, a 48-year-old senior engineer who'd given them 19 years, only to be discarded as too expensive by Greg Hensley, a boss who saw me as a line item to cut. The betrayal was a knife in my gut, but the whiskey-soaked nights were giving way to something sharper, a resolve to rebuild, to prove them wrong. My laptop glowed on the chipped Formica table, a half-formed plan staring back at me. I wasn't just fighting for a job. I was fighting for the man I'd forgotten I could be. But the weight of doubt was heavy, and every step forward felt like walking through mud. The diner was my refuge, a place where nobody knew me as the guy who'd been axed. The waitress, a woman with tired eyes and a name tag reading Bev, refilled my coffee without a word. I nodded thanks, my fingers tracing the edge of my laptop. The plan was simple but daunting. Leverage my patents, my contacts, my expertise to start something new. Maybe a consultancy, maybe a startup. I had the skills, 17 patents, systems running half of Seattle's infrastructure, but the corporate world was a shark tank, and I was bleeding. Greg's firing wasn't just personal, it was strategic. He'd spread whispers. I learned from Sarah that I was outdated, resistant to change. My reputation, built over decades, was under attack, and I had to move fast before the stain set. Sarah was my lifeline. She'd called me the day after the firing, her voice crackling with fury. "Greg's purging anyone loyal to the old guard," she said. "He's got the board eating out of his hand, Axel. But the team's with you, Vikram, Lee, me. What's your next move?" I didn't have an answer then, but her faith lit a spark. We met at the diner, away from Cascade's prying eyes. She slid into the booth, her dark hair pulled back, her eyes scanning the room like a spy. "You look like hell," she said, pushing a plate of fries toward me. "Feel like it too," I said, managing a half-smile. "But I'm not rolling over, Sarah. I'm thinking something new. A company, maybe. My designs, my rules." Her eyes lit up, but her voice was cautious. "That's big, Axel. You've got the chops, but Greg's got influence. He's already pitching your AI grid as his own to new clients. You need allies fast." She was right. Greg was rewriting history, erasing my contributions. I needed to move, but the emotional toll was crushing. Nights were the worst, alone in my apartment, the rain a constant drone. I'd replay the firing, Greg's smirk, the bored silence. I'd given Cascade everything, missed birthdays, lost my marriage to Karen because I was always working. Now, I had nothing but a severance check and a bruised ego. I thought of my dad, his calloused hands fixing engines, his voice. Puzzles don't solve themselves, Axel. I wanted to fight, but doubt whispered, what if Greg was right? What if I was too old, too expensive, too stuck in the past? I pushed the thought away, opened my laptop, and showed Sarah my notes. I've got partial rights to 3 patents, I said. The AI grid, the drone navigation system, a smart energy module. I can consult, license them out, or build something new. But I need data, Cascade's contracts, client lists, anything to know what Greg's planning. Sarah leaned forward, her voice low. I can get that. Vikram's still in the server room. He sees everything. But it's risky, Axel. If Greg catches us, we're done. I know, I said, my stomach twisting. But he's stealing my work, Sarah. I can't let him win. She nodded, her jaw set. Give me a week. I'll get you something. Waiting was torture. I spent days reaching out to old contacts, clients, engineers, even a professor from my MIT days. Most were sympathetic, but cautious. Heard you left Cascade, said Tom Reyes, a client I'd worked with for a decade. Tough break, Axel. Greg's singing your praises, but he says you're retired. The lie stung, a calculated move to sideline me. I forced a laugh, kept my voice steady. Far from retired, Tom. I'm starting something new. You'll hear from me. At night, I walked Seattle streets, the Space Needle a distant beacon in the mist. The city was alive, tech pulsing through its veins, but I felt like a stranger. I passed Cascade's new headquarters, a glass monolith I'd helped design, and felt a surge of anger. That building was mine, built on my sleepless nights, my ideas. Greg could take my desk, but not my legacy. I stopped at a park, the rain soaking my coat, and made a vow. I'd take back what was mine, not with vengeance, but with something better. The emotional weight was relentless. I called Karen, my ex-wife, needing her blunt honesty. You're not too old, Axel, she said, her voice warm despite our past. You're too good for them. Build something new, but don't let it consume you like Cascade did. Her words hit hard, a reminder of the man I'd lost in the grind. I wanted to be more than an engineer, more than a victim. I wanted to be Axel again. Sarah came through 5 days later, meeting me at the diner with a USB drive. Client contracts, project timelines, emails, she said, her voice tense. Greg's pitching your AI grid to a new investor, claiming it's his. Vikram got this, but he's nervous. We're sticking our necks out, Axel. I took the drive, my hands steady despite the adrenaline. You're risking everything, I said. Why? Because you believed in us, she said, her eyes fierce. When Greg ignored us, you fought for our ideas. We're your team, Axel, not his. Her words were a lifeline, pulling me from the edge. I went home, plugged in the drive, and saw the truth. Greg was erasing me, repackaging my work as his own. But there was a crack in his plan, an investor meeting next month, where he'd pitch my AI grid. If I could get there, show the truth, I could turn the tables. The puzzle was coming together, piece by piece, and I felt a spark of the old Axel, the one who fixed things, who never gave up. The rain fell harder outside, but I didn't care. I opened my laptop, started drafting a pitch, a vision for something new. Greg thought he'd won, but he'd underestimated me. I wasn't just an engineer, I was a builder, and I'd build something he couldn't touch. The fight was on, and I was ready. The Seattle skyline shimmered through the morning mist, a jagged silhouette of ambition and betrayal, as I hunched over my laptop in my Capitol Hill apartment. 3 weeks had passed since Cascade Dynamics fired me, Axel Thornton, a 48-year-old senior engineer who'd poured 19 years into their success, only to be discarded as too expensive by Greg Hensley, a boss who saw loyalty as a liability. The USB drive Sarah had risked her career to get me held proof. Greg was stealing my AI grid design, passing it off as his own to woo investors. The betrayal fueled me, but it was the spark of defiance, the need to reclaim my legacy, that drove me now. I wasn't just fighting for a paycheck, I was fighting for the man I'd been, the engineer who solved puzzles no one else could. But the path ahead was treacherous, and doubt was a shadow I couldn't outrun. The apartment was a war room, my coffee table buried under notes, patent filings, and empty mugs. The USB drive revealed Greg's plan, a high-stakes investor meeting in 4 weeks, where he'd pitch my AI grid to secure a $50 million contract with Horizon Ventures, a major player in smart city tech. If he succeeded, my work would be erased, my name buried under his lies. But the data also gave me an edge: client contacts, technical specs, emails showing Greg's ignorance of the system's core. I could crash his party, expose him, but I needed a plan, allies, and a way to rebuild my reputation before he poisoned it further. Sarah was my anchor, her texts a steady drumbeat of support. "Vikram's digging deeper," she wrote. "Greg's sloppy, left a trail. We'll get more." Her loyalty, and that of Vikram and Lee, was a lifeline, but it came with guilt. They were risking their jobs, their futures, for me. I called her, my voice rough from sleepless nights. "Sarah, you don't have to do this," I said. "If Greg finds out, you're toast." "Shut up, Axel," she said, her tone fierce but warm. "Your family. Greg's a parasite, and we're not letting him win. What's the plan?" "I'm pitching to Horizon myself," I said, the words solidifying as I spoke. "I'll show them the truth, my designs, my patents. But I need to build something first, a prototype, a proof I'm not just a has-been." She whistled. "That's bold. You got the resources." "Not yet," I admitted. "But I'm working on it." The resources were the problem. My severance was dwindling, my savings tied up in rent and bills. Starting a company, even a consultancy, required capital, equipment, a workspace, legal help to secure my patent rights. I reached out to old clients, my voice steady despite the knot in my stomach. Most were polite but distant, Greg's whispers about my retirement doing their damage. One, Elena Voss, a logistics exec I'd worked with for years, was different. "Axel, I heard what happened," she said over the phone, her voice sharp. "Greg's full of it. Your grid's the best in the business. What do you need?" "A chance," I said. "I'm starting something new. If I can show you a prototype, will you back me?" She paused, then said, "Show me something real, and I'm in." Her words were a spark, but the emotional weight was crushing. I wasn't just fighting Greg, I was fighting myself. Nights were a battleground, the rain outside my window a mirror to the storm inside. I'd lie awake, replaying the firing, Greg's smirk, the cardboard box that held my life's work. I'd given Cascade everything, missed my dad's last birthday before cancer took him, lost Karen because I was married to the job. Now, I was alone, staring at a future I didn't recognize. Was I too old? Had I lost my edge? The doubts were louder in the dark, but I thought of my dad's voice. "Fix the puzzle, Axel." I wasn't done solving. I started small, turning my apartment into a makeshift lab. I scavenged parts from old projects, borrowed tools from Vikram, coded late into the night. The prototype was a scaled-down version of my AI grid, optimized for small-scale logistics, a proof of concept that could rival Greg's pitch. My hands, calloused from years of building, moved with purpose, but my heart was heavy. I called Karen again, needing her clarity. "Am I crazy?" I asked, my voice raw. "Starting over at 48, taking on Greg, the board, the whole damn industry?" "You're not crazy," she said, her voice soft but firm. "You're Axel. You built Cascade from nothing. Greg's a leech, but you're a creator. Don't let him steal that." Her words were a bomb, but the stakes were rising. Sarah sent more data, emails showing Greg's desperation to impress Horizon, his lies about my incompetence. Vikram risked his access to pull server logs, proof I'd authored the grid's core code. Lee, quieter but fierce, tracked Greg's meetings, giving me a timeline. Their loyalty was humbling, but it tightened the knot of responsibility in my chest. If I failed, they'd pay the price. I met Elena at a quiet cafe near Pike Place, the smell of fish and salt in the air. I showed her my prototype specs, my voice steady despite the nerves. "This is mine," I said, sliding a tablet across the table. Not Greg's, not Cascade's. I can scale it, customize it, deliver what Horizon needs. She studied the data, her eyes sharp. Impressive, Axel. But Greg's got the board, the brand, the money. You're one man. Why should I bet on you? Because I'm the one who built it, I said, my voice low but fierce. Greg's selling my work, but he doesn't understand it. I do. Give me a shot, and I'll prove it. She leaned back, a faint smile on her lips. Get me a working demo by the investor meeting. If it's as good as you say, I'll get you in the room. I walked away, the city buzzing around me, my heart pounding with possibility and fear. The meeting was 3 weeks away, a ticking clock. I had a prototype, allies, a shot, but Greg was a predator, and he'd fight dirty. The puzzle was complex, but I was piecing it together, one move at a time. The rain fell softer now, Seattle's heartbeat syncing with mine. I wasn't just an engineer, I was a fighter, and this fight was far from over. The Seattle rain had turned to a biting drizzle, stinging my face as I stood outside a leased workshop in Fremont, a cramped garage that smelled of oil and rust. It was 5 weeks since Cascade Dynamics fired me, Axel Thornton, a 48-year-old senior engineer who'd given them 19 years, only to be discarded as too expensive by Greg Hensley, a boss who'd stolen my AI grid design to pitch as his own. With 2 weeks until his investor meeting with Horizon Ventures, I was racing to build a prototype to crash his lies and reclaim my legacy. Sarah, Vikram, and Lee risked their jobs to feed me data. Elena Voss promised a shot if I delivered, but the pressure was of ice around my chest. Every wire I soldered, every line of code I wrote, was a step toward redemption or ruin. The betrayal had broken me, but the fight was forging me anew, and I was teetering on the edge of something I couldn't yet name. The workshop was my battlefield, a chaotic sprawl of circuit boards, monitors, and coffee cups. My prototype, a compact version of my AI grid, designed for agile logistics, was taking shape, its hum a faint pulse in the dim light. I'd sunk my severance into this space, the tools, the parts, my bank account now a dwindling lifeline. Sleep was a memory. I worked through nights, my eyes burning, my hands steady despite the exhaustion. The code was mine, the design a piece of my soul, but doubt was a relentless shadow. What if it failed? What if Greg's lies outshone my truth? I saw my dad's face, his grease-stained hands, his voice. Fix the puzzle, Axel. But this puzzle felt like it could bury me. Sarah was my tether to sanity. She met me at the workshop, her face pale from her own sleepless nights. Vikram got more, she said, handing me a flash drive. Greg's pitching your grid as a new era for Cascade. He's got Horizon eating it up, Axel. You've got to move fast. I plugged in the drive, my heart sinking as I read. Greg's emails were bold, claiming full credit for my work, dismissing my contributions as minor tweaks. He'd scheduled a demo for Horizon, promising features only I understood. He's bluffing, I said, my voice tight. He doesn't know the system's limits. I can expose that. Then do it, Sarah said, her eyes fierce. But be careful. Greg's sniffing around. He asked Vikram about server logs. We're on thin ice. Her words were a jolt. I was asking too much of them, Sarah, Vikram, Lee, risking their careers for my fight. You can walk away, I said, my voice low. I won't blame you. She grabbed my arm, her grip fierce. We're not walking, Axel. You taught us to build, to believe in the work. Greg's a thief, and we're taking him down together. Her loyalty cracked something open in me, a mix of gratitude and guilt. I nodded, unable to speak, and turned back to the prototype. The investor meeting was my shot, but I needed more than tech. I needed a stage, a way to get in the room. Elena Voss was my key, but she'd want a working demo, flawless, undeniable. I pushed harder, my hands wiring circuits, my mind debugging code, the hum of the prototype a heartbeat in the chaos. The emotional toll was brutal. I'd always been steady, the guy who fixed things, but now I was unraveling. I saw Greg smirk in my dreams, heard the board silence, felt the weight of 19 years erased. I'd lost so much to Cascade, my marriage to Karen, time with my dad before he died, pieces of myself I couldn't name. Was this fight worth it? Or was I chasing a ghost, a version of myself that didn't exist anymore? I called Karen, her voice a lifeline through the static. I'm scared, I admitted, my voice raw. What if I'm not enough? You're more than enough, she said, her tone fierce. You're Axel Thornton, the man who built systems nobody else could. Greg's scared of you, not the other way around. Keep going. Her words were fuel, but the fire was flickering. I met Elena at her office, a sleek space overlooking Elliott Bay, the water a restless mirror of my nerves. I showed her the prototype's progress, its data streams flickering on my tablet. It's leaner than Cascade's, I said, my voice steady despite the stakes. Faster, smarter, mine. I can demo it at Horizon's meeting, prove Greg's lying. She studied the specs, her eyes sharp. It's good, Axel, but it's not ready. You've got 2 weeks to make it sing, or Horizon won't listen. Greg's got the board, the brand. You've got, you. Make it count. I left, the city's pulse pounding in my ears. 2 weeks. I pushed harder, the workshop a blur of sparks and code. Vikram sent a warning, Greg's auditing server access. Be careful. The noose was tightening, but I couldn't stop. I refined the prototype, its efficiency surpassing even my old designs. It was a piece of me, a defiance of Greg's theft, a promise to my dad's memory. Then came a blow. Sarah called, her voice shaking. Greg fired Vikram, she said. Caught him pulling logs. He's blaming you, Axel. Says you're sabotaging Cascade. My stomach dropped, guilt crashing over me. Is Vikram okay? I asked, my voice hoarse. He's pissed but fine, she said. He's with you, Axel. We all are. Finish this. I hung up, my hands trembling. Vikram's sacrifice was a weight I couldn't shake, but it was also a call to action. I worked through another night, the prototype humming, my resolve hardening. Greg thought he'd crushed me, but he'd only made me sharper. The investor meeting was close, and I'd be there, not as a victim, but as a force. The rain outside was a whisper now, Seattle's heartbeat steady, and I felt mine rise to meet it. The puzzle was almost solved, and I was ready to play my hand. The Seattle dawn was a bruise of purple and gold, painting the Fremont workshop's grimy windows as I soldered the final circuit into my prototype. 7 weeks had passed since Cascade Dynamics fired me, Axel Thornton, a 48-year-old senior engineer who'd given them 19 years, only to be cast aside as too expensive by Greg Hensley, a boss who'd stolen my AI grid design to claim as his own. The investor meeting with Horizon Ventures was 1 week away, my chance to expose Greg's lies with a working prototype and reclaim my legacy. Sarah and Lee risked their jobs to support me, Vikram had been fired for helping, and Elena Voss had promised me a shot if I delivered. But the weight of their sacrifices, the relentless grind, and the ghosts of my past were pushing me to the edge. I was no longer just fighting for my work, I was fighting for the man I'd become, and the cost was tearing me apart. The workshop was a chaotic shrine to my obsession, its air thick with the tang of metal and coffee. The prototype, a lean, powerful version of my AI grid, hummed on the workbench, its data streams a flickering pulse of hope. I'd poured everything into it, my severance, my sleepless nights, my soul. It was faster, smarter than Cascade's bloated system, a testament to the engineer I was. But every beep of the machine echoed my doubts. What if it wasn't enough? What if Greg's polish outshone my truth? I saw my dad's face, his hands worn from fixing engines, his voice, "Fix the puzzle, Axel." But the puzzle was a labyrinth, and I was losing myself in it. Sarah was my compass, her loyalty a fire that kept me going. She met me in the workshop, her eyes shadowed from her own battles at Cascade. "Lee's got new intel," she said, sliding a tablet across the bench. "Greg's demo is shaky. He doesn't understand the grid's core. Horizon's skeptical, but he's got the board's backing. You've got a window, Axel." I scanned the data, my heart racing. Greg's emails showed panic, his team scrambling to patch gaps in my stolen design. He's vulnerable, I said, my voice rough. If I can demo first, show Horizon the real system, he's done. Then make it perfect, Sarah said, her voice fierce. But Axel, you're killing yourself. You haven't slept in days. We need you sharp, not broken. Her words hit like a punch. I looked at my reflection in a cracked mirror on the wall. Gray stubble, bloodshot eyes, a stranger staring back. I'd been running on adrenaline and anger, but the toll was undeniable. Vikram's firing was a wound that wouldn't heal. He'd texted me, "No regrets, Axel. Finish it." Lee was still in the trenches, feeding me scraps, but Greg's audits were closing in. I was endangering them all, and for what? A chance to prove I wasn't obsolete? I sank onto a stool, my hands shaking. "What if I fail them, Sarah?" I said, my voice barely a whisper. "You, Vikram, Lee, what if this is all for nothing?" She knelt beside me, her hand on my shoulder. "You're not failing us," she said. "You're showing us what it means to fight. We believe in you, Axel. Believe in yourself." Her words cracked the dam inside me, tears burning my eyes. I hadn't cried since my dad's funeral, but the weight of it all, betrayal, loss, fear, spilled over. Sarah didn't flinch, just stayed there, her presence a lifeline. I wiped my face, my resolve hardening. "I'm not done," I said, my voice steadier. "Let's finish this." I threw myself back into the prototype, refining its code, testing its limits. It was flawless now, a machine that could outshine Greg's stolen version in every metric. Elena Voss called, her voice crisp. "Horizon's open to a second pitch," she said. "I got you a slot, Axel, but it's the same day as Greg's. You've got one shot. Don't blow it." "I won't," I said, my heart pounding. 1 week to prepare, to polish, to step into a room that could make or break me. I worked with a clarity I hadn't felt in years, my hands moving like they did in Cascade's early days, when every project was a dream. But the emotional scars lingered. I thought of Karen, my ex-wife, who'd seen me at my best and worst. I called her, needing her grounding. "I'm scared," I admitted, my voice raw. "This pitch, it's everything. If I lose, I don't know who I am." "You're Axel," she said, her voice warm. "The man who built miracles from nothing. Win or lose, you're more than Cascade, more than Greg. Don't forget that." Her words were a beacon, guiding me through the fog. I reached out to Vikram, offering to cover his rent until he found work. "You didn't have to," he said, his voice thick. "But I'm proud to be on your team, Axel." Lee sent a final batch of data, Greg's demo script, riddled with errors only I'd spot. Their sacrifices were my armor, their belief my strength. The night before the final prep, I walked to Lake Union, the city's lights reflecting like stars on the water. Seattle was my home, my battleground, but it was also a mirror, showing me the man I'd become. I wasn't the naive engineer who'd joined Cascade, nor the broken man Greg had fired. I was something new, scarred, but sharp, driven not by revenge, but by purpose. I thought of my dad, his lessons, his pride. "I'm fixing it," I whispered to the night, my voice swallowed by the wind. Back in the workshop, I ran the prototype one last time, its hum a steady heartbeat. It was ready, and so was I. Greg thought he'd erased me, but he'd only sharpened my edges. The investor meeting was my stage, and I'd play my hand, not for vengeance, but for truth. The rain had stopped, the city quiet, and I felt a fire in my chest, a certainty I hadn't known in years. The puzzle was almost solved, and I was no longer afraid of the pieces. The Seattle morning was crisp, the sky a rare canvas of blue as I stood outside Horizon Ventures' sleek downtown office, my prototype's case heavy in my hand. 8 weeks had passed since Cascade Dynamics fired me, Axel Thornton, a 48-year-old senior engineer who'd given them 19 years, only to be discarded as too expensive by Greg Hensley, a boss who'd stolen my AI grid design to claim as his own. Today was the investor meeting, my chance to expose Greg's lies with a working prototype that outshone his fraud. Sarah, Lee, and the now jobless Vikram had risked everything to get me here. Elena Voss had opened the door, and I'd rebuilt myself from the ashes of betrayal. The scars of doubt and loss were still raw, but they'd forged me into something stronger, a man ready to reclaim his legacy, not with vengeance, but with truth. This was my puzzle's final piece, and I was ready to place it. The Horizon office was a temple of glass and steel, its lobby buzzing with suits and ambition. I wore a navy blazer, my best shirt, my nerves masked by a calm I'd fought to find. Elena met me at the entrance, her eyes sharp. "You're up after Greg," she said, guiding me to a waiting area. "He's pitching now. Your prototype better sing, Axel, or he'll bury you." "It will," I said, my voice steady, my heart a drumbeat. I clutched the case, the weight of my team's sacrifices, Vikram's job, Sarah's and Lee's risks, grounding me. I thought of my dad, his calloused hands, his voice. "Fix the puzzle, Axel." This was more than a pitch. It was a reckoning, for the engineer I was, the man I'd become. Through a glass wall, I saw Greg in the boardroom, his red tie a slash of arrogance, his slides flashing my AI grid specs. His voice was muffled, but his confidence was palpable, a predator in his element. The Horizon execs nodded, their faces unreadable. I felt a surge of anger, but it wasn't blind rage, it was fuel. Greg thought he'd erased me, but he'd only set the stage for my return. Elena signaled me. It was time. I entered the boardroom, the air thick with expectation. Greg's eyes widened, his smile faltering as I set my prototype on the table. The execs, 5 men and women in sharp suits, watched, curious. "Axel Thornton," I said, my voice clear. "I designed the AI grid Greg just pitched. He's selling my work, but he doesn't understand it. I'm here to show you the real thing." Greg laughed, a sharp, nervous sound. "Axel, this is desperate," he said. "You were let go for a reason. Let's not waste their time." The lead exec, a woman named Claire Nguyen, raised a hand. "We'll hear him out," she said, her eyes locked on mine. "Go ahead, Mr. Thornton." I powered up the prototype, its hum a quiet defiance. The screen lit up, data streams flowing like a river. "This is my design," I said, walking them through its features. Faster processing, lower energy use, adaptability Greg's version couldn't match. I showed the patents, my name clear, and the server log Sarah and Vikram had risked everything for, proving I'd authored the core code. Then I ran a live demo, the prototype optimizing a mock logistics network in seconds, its efficiency undeniable. The execs leaned forward, Claire's pen pausing on her notepad. Greg's face reddened, his voice sharp. "This is a stunt," he said. "He's using Cascade's IP, stolen data. I'll sue." "Enough," Claire cut in, her voice ice. "We've seen your demo, Greg. It's sluggish, error-prone. Axel's is superior, and his evidence is compelling. Explain yourself." Greg stammered, his polish crumbling. "He's lying," he said, but his eyes darted, a cornered animal. I felt no joy, only a quiet certainty. The truth was my weapon, and it was enough. Claire turned to me. "Why now, Axel? Why not take this to court?" "Because I don't just want justice," I said, my voice steady. "I want to build. I'm starting my own firm, Thornton Solutions, to deliver systems like this, honest, innovative, mine. I'm asking for your trust, not just to right a wrong, but to create something new." The room was silent, the weight of my words settling. Claire nodded, her eyes assessing. "We'll discuss this," she said. "Thank you both." I left the room, my legs trembling, Elena's hand on my shoulder. "You did it," she whispered. "They're rattled. Greg's done." I waited in the lobby, the city's pulse outside a distant hum. An hour later, Claire emerged. "Axel," she said, "we're pulling the contract from Cascade. Your evidence checks out, and your prototype's the best we've seen. We want to partner with Thornton Solutions. Start small, prove yourself, and we'll scale." I nodded, my throat tight. "Thank you," I said, my voice barely steady. Greg stormed past, his face a mask of fury, but I didn't look back. He'd lost, not because I hated him, but because I built something better. That night, I met Sarah, Vikram, and Lee at the diner, the smell of coffee grounding me. I told them everything, their faces lighting up. "We did it," Sarah said, her voice thick. "You did it, Axel." "No," I said, my eyes meeting theirs. "We did. I'm hiring you all, first chance I get." Vikram grinned, Lee raised a mug, and I felt a warmth I hadn't known in years. Thornton Solutions was born, a small office leased with Horizons Advance, my team ready to join. I called Karen, her voice a smile through the phone. "I knew you'd win," she said. "You're Axel." I walked home, the Space Needle glowing against the night. Seattle was my city again, not a battlefield, but a canvas. I thought of my dad, his lessons, his pride. I'd fixed the puzzle, not just for me, but for the team who'd believed in me, for the man I'd rediscovered. Greg's fall was justice, but my rise was victory. To anyone listening, betrayal can break you, but it can also build you. Don't let them dim your light. Fight, create, rise. I did, and I'm still here, still building, still Axel.